Hello there folks, my name is Frizz, and welcome to my review series of Pathfinder 2nd Edition Archetypes. I'm going to be going over every single archetype in Pathfinder 2nd Edition and giving you my thoughts on them. Of course, these are just going to be my thoughts, so they're going to be opinionated and not at all factual, but, it'll just be interesting. Today we're going to be starting with the Acrobat, which is, I feel, a great representation of a fairly minor archetype that won't dominate what a character is or their identity, but it does add to the character identity and gives a lot of ways for a character to, feel like the flavor without getting insane mechanical benefits. Anyway, let's get started. The Acrobat is fairly simple. It gives you a lot of mobility options that other characters don't have access to, and it also gives you some offensive options using acrobatic feats. You don't have to be a dex-based character to be an acrobat, although being a frontline dex-based character does make certain feats a lot more useful. But there are certainly no restrictions on who can take the Acrobat dedication. If your character is an acrobatic character, then yeah, just take this feat. That's generally how I personally feel you get the most memorable characters, is when you take what options fit them the best. Anyway, let's just get started with the dedication. The Acrobat dedication is fairly standard in terms of every archetype in Pathfinder 2e. It's level 2, and only has one prerequisite, which is that you're trained in acrobatics, which if you're playing a character that's going to be an acrobat, yeah, I think that you should be trained in acrobatics, so no real surprises there. However, the actual mechanical benefits of the Acrobat dedication are really, really good. First, the more simple one is, whenever you critically succeed at an acrobatics check to tumble through an opponent's space, you don't treat any squares in their space as difficult terrain. Now, this is actually really significant because, for example, if you're trying to tumble through a large-sized creature, that takes 20 feet of movement normally, where it only takes 10 feet if you critically succeed now. But now it only takes 10 feet if you critically succeed. This is even more useful for huge-sized creatures where otherwise you might not even be able to unless your movement speed is increased from other sources. The second benefit of the Acrobat dedication is that you become an expert in acrobatics. And at 7th level, you become a master in acrobatics, and at 15th level, you become legendary in acrobatics. That is 3 free skill increases for the cost of a level 2 class feat. That is insanely good economy. The next feat is called Contortionist, and it opens up at level 4. The only prerequisite that it has is the Acrobat dedication, which is fairly standard for archetype feats, but Contortionist does give you a lot. Contortionist mainly affects the squeeze action that you can take using acrobatics. Upon taking the Contortionist feat, you also gain the Quick Squeeze feat, which allows you to move at 5 feet per round on a success and 10 feet per round on a critical success. Normally with the Quick Squeeze feat, if you're legendary in acrobatics, you can squeeze at full speed. Well, with the Contortionist feat, it allows you to move full speed if you're a master in acrobatics, which is a whole, 8 levels sooner? So this is really, really good economy if you have to squeeze very often in your games. The second benefit of Contortionist is that whenever you successfully escape using acrobatics, the creature you escape from is flat-footed against your next attack you make before the end of your next turn. This is really solid, especially for a rogue, for instance, because once you tumble out, then you can get your sneak attack on this opponent. This is actually kind of interesting in that it is only against your next attack, not your next melee attack. If an acrobatic wizard is grappled and then they escape, then if they have this feat, that target is now flat-footed to the next disintegrate spell you cast, which is really tasty. There aren't a lot of ways to reliably get a flat-footed condition for a ranged attack. And while this isn't reliable, because you have to rely on an enemy grabbing you, which is never an ideal situation, it is still nice. At level 6, the Acrobat archetype gets its first strictly defensive ability, Dodge Away. Dodge Away is a reaction that you can only use if you are aware of an attack, and you aren't flat-footed, and you are also the target of a melee attack. And then you can spend your reaction to use Dodge Away. Dodge Away is actually pretty similar to Nimble Dodge, the rogue and swashbuckler feat, but it is maybe a little less good, but it has some other benefits. Nimble Dodge gives a +2 circumstance bonus against the triggering attack, while Dodge Away only provides a +1 circumstance bonus. However, with Dodge Away, if the attack misses you, you can then step after the strike that they make. And if you're a master, you can move 10 feet with this step instead of 5 feet. Now, the power of Dodge Away mainly comes in action economy. If you're fighting a creature and you are on the edge of its reach, so if you're adjacent to a medium creature or 10 feet away from a creature with a spear or a large-sized creature, if you use Dodge Away and they miss, you can then step out of their reach and force them to use an action to approach you. And taking away someone's actions is easily the most damaging thing that you can do to a creature. Now, the +1 isn't insane, and yes, you might not get the second benefit of the step every single time you use it, but it's just a reaction. If you don't have many other good actions that are competing with Dodge Away, you could potentially do this every turn and spare yourself a lot of attacks. At level 7, any character with the Acrobat dedication can take the Graceful Leaper skill feat. Graceful Leaper is pretty interesting, especially whenever you compare base jumping rules from Pathfinder 2e to games like 5th edition. In Pathfinder 2e, all of your jumps are based off of athletics, when in 5e, they're based off of acrobatics. Well, Graceful Leaper just says, yeah, you can jump based on acrobatics. Now, there are some things that you need to keep in mind here. The main thing is that a lot of the feats that do improve your jumps, like Quick Jump, Powerful Leap, Wall Jump, Cloud Jump, all of those are athletics skill feats. So just because you have Graceful Leaper doesn't mean that you qualify for those feats that improve your jumps. But you're going to be miles and miles better if you're not trained in athletics, but you have Graceful Leaper. It's not a super showy or super strong feat, but it is just a lot of fun, and also some really fun ideas for characters that are, look at this rogue, they can barely lift their own weight. Oh, look at that, they can standing jump 30 feet. Okay, yeah, we're in a high fantasy campaign, baby. At level 8, the Acrobat archetype gets its first actually offensive action, Tumbling Strike. It is a single action with the Flourish and Move traits that you have to be next to an enemy to use. And then, when you decide you want to use it, you roll an acrobatics check against the reflex DC of an enemy who is adjacent to you. On a critical success, you move to the other side of the enemy, moving through their square. This movement doesn't trigger reactions. You can't move further than your speed, so you can't go onto the other side of a blue whale, probably unless you're, a monk or something. And you must end your movement adjacent to the person that you're doing this to. After moving, you can make a melee strike against them, and they're flat-footed. On a success, it's pretty much just a critical success, except they aren't flat-footed against your strike. On a failure, you don't move, but you can strike. However, something to keep in mind here is that you still will provoke attacks of opportunity on a failure, as the critical success and success states that you don't trigger any reactions, while the failure doesn't state that, and Tumbling Strike has the move trait. On a critical failure, nothing happens, but you still provoke. So, unless you critically fail, you can still make the strike. And if you're fighting something that doesn't have attacks of opportunity, then this is just a free strike with a chance to make an opponent flat-footed. It is a bit less useful if you have an ally that you can flank with, but this is a great way to get into a flanking position for your other ally to step in to actually make it into a permanent flank. At level 10, the Acrobat archetype keystone is available, Tumbling Opportunist. Tumbling Opportunist is it's pretty weird, I'm not gonna lie. It's a very, very weird feat. It has a frequency of once per minute, and it's a free action. Whenever you tumble through or use the Tumbling Strike action, you can, as a free action, attempt to trip the person that you move through their square. And you get to use acrobatics instead of athletics to trip. This is fairly strong. It's not too strong, because it is effectively one free trip per combat. And you have to probably put yourself into a dangerous position to do it, especially if any opponents have attacks of opportunity or other reactions that they can use to punish you for it. But but it is incredibly strong. And it's just a free action every combat, what's not to love? Although do keep in mind that Tumbling Opportunist does increase your multiple attack penalty, so if you use this after doing Tumbling Strike, then it will be at a penalty. And that is all of the different archetype feats that the Acrobat has available. I've been personally calling the Acrobat a minor archetype, as in it's an archetype that doesn't completely dominate a character's identity, like some others do, like the Cavalier or the Beastmaster as an example. Those are archetypes that have tons and tons of feats. You could realistically probably take one feat every single level for both of those archetypes, and have a character that's almost defined by the archetype, which is in no way bad, but the Acrobat still preserves the identity of the class and ancestry and all of that without dominating it. It's an addition to the character that's fairly minor and doesn't really take any attention elsewhere. It says, oh, you had this concept during character creation that your character was an acrobat, whether that be a circus performer or just a street performer or really anything that could realistically be an acrobat. Well, here's a way to get a mechanical benefit and explanation for how you can do this stuff. It's nothing complicated, and I really, really love it. And I believe that's it. If you guys enjoyed this video, then please just let me know. I don't particularly care how you let me know, I just like to know. This took a lot of effort for me to be able to record. I'm not used to stuff like this, so let me know if you'd like to see me make more of this stuff. I'm going to be making more regardless, but the amount of views and attention that it gets will dictate the amount of videos that I make and how frequently they are, because this takes a lot of time and effort for me to make. So yeah, just please let me know. If you enjoyed it, disliked it, just let me know. I just like knowing what people think about what I make. I'm just that kind of guy. Anyway, I hope that all of your games go well. I hope that you have a wonderful life. See you next time.